I want to talk to you guys a little bit as an individual, rather than telling you how you should think and what I think is wrong and what's right. I want to speak to you a little bit as an individual, as a person with certain moral ideals, certain standards that I think are important to who I am and what drive me in my behavior. The main reason, really, why I reject certain ideologies like feminism and Christianity is because they tell people how to think and who to be and what's okay and what's not okay in an authoritarian context. But when you look deeper into these ideologies, you see it oftentimes an expression of paranoia and an expression of selfishness. That is the main reason why I recoil from them. Right now, I lead a pretty good life. I have everything I need. And I'm happy for the most part. But I have certain drawbacks medically, certain drawbacks physically and socially that maybe would make me unhappy, you could say. Certain things that would cause me a measure of shame or a measure of inadequacy, just like any other person. Everybody has these kind of drawbacks. They come in different contexts. Everybody's an individual. But what I see in these two ideologies that I rally against is that they are an expression of that inadequacy or of that desire to have something they don't. That pushes on other people to suit that need for them without them really having to do anything. Christianity kind of wants everybody to act Christian and to believe what they believe. Whether that Christian is very liberal and kind of laissez-faire, but still wishes everybody would believe in God, to the creationist who wants to stifle science and global warming prevention, who wants to teach that the earth is 6,000 years old or 4,000 years old or whatever, and wants to make sure that everybody acts in accordance with what they interpret as biblical teachings, which of course is variable to every single group. And with feminism, it becomes a little bit more person-centered rather than ideology-centered, where you see an expression of frustration at humanity's idealism of certain body types. You know what I mean? Like, what you think of as a sexy woman probably is not overweight, probably is, a certain way, a certain behavior, and how they think that culture is very male-centered. And let me be kind of honest with you, our culture is a little male-centered. And our culture is very idealistic. The ideal man that you see in advertisements is a very fit and handsome man. The ideal woman that you see in advertisements is a very young and fit and thin woman. I personally don't have a problem with that. I understand ideals. My personal preferences of the ideal man and ideal woman is different than society's. But the difference between me and a social justice activist or a feminist activist is that I don't have a problem with culture's idealism. I think that's fine. I think that's kind of an aggregate of what the majority, I should say, of society idealizes in men and women. And just because I disagree with that doesn't mean that I think that society should see things my way. You would be fair to say that ultimately my channel is a manner of me trying to convince others to see things my way. But I don't have any sort of expectations based on what I do here on YouTube. I don't expect you to watch my videos and see things my way. I would kind of hope you would. But it isn't going to ruin my day if you don't. Meanwhile, feminism and other religious sort of kind of cults behave differently, where they would shame you or perhaps even wish, if they had the ability to actually destroy you, if they could. Now, where this channel was originally anti-Christian solely and has become anti-Christian and anti-feminist just because feminism is very successful in this kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? This violent push, not violent physically, but violent as in through force, through sheer force of numbers and sheer force of voice, pushes things to happen through this social media that we have, this social culture that we have that's very global and very susceptible to change through majority voice on social media to make things happen. I am against that personally because of what I've been through as an individual, where I've seen people who either have a deficiency or adopt a deficiency and look at the world around them and say, make me whole. Give me slack or give me redress of grievances because I am deficient. Now, I'm not the most successful person. I am not the most charismatic and affecting of a person. But part of that, honestly, is through modesty. I don't believe I deserve everyone around me to change their behavior or to give me attention because I am in some sort of loss or in some sort of negative position. I've been in a lot of extreme positions that feminism might afford me a kind of redress of grievances. I've been the victim of domestic violence, of physical abuse, of harassment from authority, whether it was police or officials in school when I was younger. I've had wrong done unto me, but I didn't look to society, to a group, an ultra group of strangers who don't know me, and say, give me recompense. And what deficiencies I have as a person, what illnesses I might suffer, or what handicaps I might suffer. I didn't look onto society and say, make all of you treat me with soft hands, treat me with kid gloves. I didn't say to society, become easier for me to handle. Because in my personal life, when I saw people use whatever handicap they had as an excuse, I saw that as a very selfish and underhanded behavior. I saw they didn't say, whenever they said, I have blank, therefore give me a free pass, they weren't saying it with humility. They were saying it as a power play. And that's what I see in feminism and other religions today is, I am not going to put in the extra mile to overcome my own shortcomings or my own handicaps. I am not willing to become the underdog that overcomes odds that are greater than the average for society around me. I need society to handicap itself in order to suit my needs as an individual. And that kind of cry to society is, don't glorify beautiful, fit, and idealized women because I am not that. And I deserve to be idolized. No. I know I'm not a Calvin Klein model. I know I'm not a Hugo Boss model or a fucking Tommy Hilfiger model. I know I'm not fucking George Clooney or Brad Pitt. I know I'm not the best looking guy on the planet. But I don't look to society to idealize what I look like. I don't even go to society and tell them to idolize my personality. Although I have enough confidence in who I am and in the way I think and the way I act, that I idolize people who are a little bit more like me or like what I want to be in the future. But I don't expect society to fit that model that I have. And that's the problem I have with these ideologies. Is they're saying everybody should be like me. And it doesn't even matter that I would even agree with some of what these people say, or agree with some of what these people fight for. I am very against police brutality, and I realize that there's a problem with racism in law enforcement that produces itself extremely violently and extremely with great effect, I don't know any other way to say it, on society. But I look at the Black Lives Matter movement and say, what would you say if a white person or a Mexican or an Asian person was brutalized by police? What would you say? Would you feature that? Would you parade and fucking protest on that fact? No, because you're focused on one thing, and that's fine. But when you come to me and ask me and say Black Lives Matter, I'm sorry. I know it's not a popular thing to say, but I say all lives matter. And I'm not interested in, for good or bad, for right or wrong, pursuing such a focused design against police brutality. I think it's perfectly normal to say, I am anti-police brutality, and I want to march against police brutality, and I want reform in law enforcement training and law enforcement protocol, and I am uncomfortable with introducing race or gender or any other specific into that, as if this is a problem with only a certain demographic. It's not. And I have the same approach to gender politics and identity politics. I am not in this to make everybody act like me. I have a certain way of wishing that the world would be more like me, but I kind of keep that more or less to myself. And I have a certain way of looking at the world and saying, this is not what's best for everyone, and that's what I present to you, YouTube. Is when I can definitively point at something and say, this is bad for everyone. That's when I come as a voice rather than as a person and talk to you people who have no idea who I am as an individual, and I have no idea who you are as an individual, and I want to speak to you on this greater social level because that is the way I think a social platform like this, whether it's Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, whatever, should speak. And I want that to be as unselfish and as altruistic as possible. So while my motivations, no matter how diffused into what's best for the world might be, of course they are informed by my experiences as a person, but I reject what I see as ultimately selfish and as ultimately egocentric driven, if you follow me. I don't believe in forcing what I think on other people. And I vehemently stand in whatever small way I can, or great way I can, depending on the situation, against people who act selfishly to force their ideas on other people. And however long-winded this little speech might have been, that's what I want to impart to you people, is to act as unselfishly as possible and to think about others rather than yourself when you try to affect change in the world. No matter how that desire to affect a change might be designed by who you are as an individual and what you have been through personally, I hope that what you would ask others to do is in their best interest and what you think is best for a society and for best for the whole of your group or society or humanity or the world or whatever, rather than to ask society to treat you in a way that is easier for you, and to ask society to mold itself in your image. Thanks for watching.